What's going on, everybody? It is the 4th episode of our preview series previewing the upcoming NFL season, and boy, have we got a good episode for you tonight. As always, I am your host, Devin Primrose, joined by my brother from another mother, Mr. Blake Ivy. What's going on, man?
Man, nothing much.
Oh, hey.
You know, we're getting a lot of.
Hold on a second. Got some craziness.
It sounds like the airplane.
Starting it off. Can you talk real quick? Check 1, 2. Go ahead and talk, Blake.
Check 1, 2.
Oh, why can't I hear you?
You can't hear me?
This is not fun.
Oh, that's not good.
There we go.
I'm still getting a lot of noise from Hayden, though.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can mute that. Do I need to press like the phone button? The button on my phone?
Oh,
on
no.
Ninja, or...
No, your phone should be fine. So we're not getting anything from your phone. It's just
right.
Noise from your room.
Yeah. I don't know how the heck I'm going to... Unless I muted myself on the Discord.
Just don't forget to unmute yourself.
Yeah, that's going to be the main thing.
All right.
You want to kick it off again?
Just pick up in it.
Just pick up where we were?
Yeah.
Okay. I have to think about how.
All right, here we go. What's going on, man?
Man, not much. Just getting excited. Today was the final cut day for the NFL. So, paying a close attention to see who gets cut. There's some really weird ones that have kind of happened today. We were just talking about it before the show, like Marlon Mack, that at one point was the starting running back for the Colts and now got cut from the Texans. So that's weird. But, life, other than that, life just cruising along, man. Just still puttering along. Zeke's playing T-ball, switch hitting, crushing the ball, good stuff.
He's going to be an athlete.
He is, man. It's ridiculous. But most importantly, I'm excited because this week we have a special guest on the podcast. We have got a good friend of mine. We've known him for several years. His name is Hayden McDaniel. He is with me. He is a huge Falcons fan. And so we brought him in to kind of specialize with me on the NFC South, kind of zoom in on this expertise that we know. So Hayden, say what's up. Plug your podcast, because are you part of 2 different podcasts?
Yes. What's going on, guys? I'm Hayden McDaniel. Yes, I have a college football podcast called Fourth and Wrong, and then a baseball podcast called Touch 'Em All. So college football and baseball fans, if you're out there, you can check it out on the Armchair Banter channel on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. I also have a Facebook page if you want to follow that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, man. So we're super excited to have Hayden. Huge sports nut. And so he knows a lot about several different sports. As he said, he's got a baseball podcast, but here to talk about the Souths tonight. We're talking AFC South. We are talking NFC South. It's the dirty South, man. Listen, you start talking South, I get excited. Born and raised in Atlanta, the dirty South, dirty birds. I'm pumped.
Yeah, I mean both of these both these divisions are a little weird. Like, I said it off pod, and I'll say it for all of our listeners out there. That I think the 3 of us will probably agree on the division winners. Blake gave a little spicy take earlier that we would not, which I'm very, very intrigued to hear what that is. But the other 6 teams in these divisions, I could see some of them getting double-digit wins. I could see some of them going with 3 wins. So it's tough to know exactly what you're gonna get. But should we start with the AFC?
That's what we've been doing the whole time. We've been going alphabetical by conference and then alphabetical by first name. So you better.
I'm gonna try and nail this.
Okay.
Houston Texans would be the first in the AFC South.
That's what I got in my alphabet.
Right over there in H-Town, where they have a new quarterback. I mean,
They do.
not a new. He was there last year, but kind of giving him the franchise QB treatment. Like, this is our guy. Davis Mills. We'll see. New head coach and Lovie Smith coming over. I think the last time he was in the league, he was coaching for the Bears, if I'm not mistaken. But I know that he was coaching college football in Illinois and did not do great there. So it's a little interesting that he got the job. But what new faces we got coming into Houston? Who's leaving Houston? Who's coming in?
So Houston, what I have is originally I had Marlon Mack written out, and then this afternoon I had to take that out because, well, he's gone now, which is weird. But I guess it's because they have faith in somebody I'll get to in a minute. So they brought in Brandon Cooks, which is weird because he start his career there, or he's been here before, right? Like, this is not his first time in Houston.
I feel like he's been there. Has he not been there the last couple of years?
Maybe his contract expired and they just signed him again. So I could be wrong there, but it said they added. I put Chris Conley on the list. I don't know if he's going to be that huge of a factor. Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes, Fabian Moreau. Those are some pretty big names on defense that are going to help them out a lot. They also added some offensive line help. As far as losses, they lost their quarterback, Happy Endings. They lost cornerback Terrence Mitchell. They lost their safety, Justin Reed, who, as we saw in Kansas City, can also kick field goals. Do you guys need a minute to recover?
It took me too long to catch what you said there.
Hey, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do my best to never say his name on the podcast. I'm just going to try to refer to him in the disgrace that he deserves to be referred to as. And then through the draft, honestly, to me, where this team improved the most and probably the least talked about team of winning the draft is the Houston Texans. They drafted Derek Stingley Jr., cornerback out of LSU. They drafted Kenyon Green, offensive guard out of Texas A&M. Jalen Petrie, who is a slot corner. He played safety at Baylor, but it's most likely he's going to be used at slot corner. Then they added John Mechie III from Alabama, stud. Then they added Christian Harris, linebacker from Alabama, stud. And then they added their running back, who I think is why Marlon Mack got cut, is because it seems like they're pretty high on Dameon Pierce, running back from Florida. So this team's draft, I mean, I went all the way to the fourth round there of their draft picks. And when I'm listing all the way to the fourth round, they probably did a pretty bang up job in the draft.
Yeah, for sure.
And that is one thing is to also add is Hayden is a Bama fan. So he knows two of those guys and probably three if you include Derek Stingley Jr. because he watched LSU too because he hates them. And so he knows those guys really well watching those teams. So what do you think they got in those Bama products, Hayden?
Well, it's really unfortunate about John Mechie because, he was diagnosed with, I believe it was leukemia back in July. And so I don't believe he's going to be playing this season. Either he's out indefinitely or out for the season. I can't remember. But I was really looking forward to seeing what he was going to be able to add to that, to the wide receiver core for the Texans. But Christian Harris, my gosh, that guy is unbelievable. Stingley, unbelievable as well. Gave me nightmares. Back in the day at LSU, especially with him covering Devontae Smith, it was one of those fun wide receiver safety battles. It's fun. That was really fun to watch all the time. Right. So I'm glad Alabama doesn't have to face him anymore because it doesn't keep me up at night the night before. But but I'm really looking for now. I can actually be a fan and kind of watch him because I was a fan. I was secretly a fan of his. When he was at LSU, I just didn't want to admit it then, but I'll admit it now.
It's out now. It's out now.
Yeah. I mean, now that he's not playing Alabama, now that he's not even in the NFC South, I can say now I'm a fan of his, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. I think he's going to make the Texans a lot better.
For sure.
Can't make them worse.
I do question the Lovie Smith hire, honestly, because Lovie Smith did absolutely nothing. Coaching college football at Illinois to warrant him getting rehired in the NFL, in my opinion. And when he was last there with the Bears, it wasn't. He had a handful of good seasons back when the Bears had some dominant defenses, and Jay Cutler had some decent play. But he just hasn't looked like a solid head coach in a while, and I feel like there's better head coaches out there on the market. So I just question that move. It just seems really weird. And I don't have this season going great for the Texans. Now, this is one of those teams that I mentioned earlier that I could see potentially, if things click and everything goes right, this team, flirting with double digits. I could see that, but I have them at 4-13, and I think that's probably closer to the reality for Houston.
Oh, I will say on the Lovie Smith hire, I'm just glad to see a black failed head coach get a second chance in the NFL undeservingly, because
Fair.
we've seen white head coaches get jobs that it's like, why is Josh McDaniel getting another head coaching job? He was awful the first time.
Right.
We'll see it happen with Dan Quinn here in a few years, I'm sure,
Probably.
that he's going to get a second chance for no reason. So it's nice to see that if they're going to make a bad head coaching hire, it's not just white guys. So that's nice. But yeah, I have them. Okay, I told you I disagree with several of my records. I think that when I was making my picks, it's really hard when you're making picks to click on the Houston Texans to give them a win. Okay, it's a really hard thing to do. After I've been the entirety of the time I've watched football, of my whole life watching football, I don't think I've ever picked the Houston Texans, right? So
maybe way back in like the Matt Schaub and Andre Johnson.
Yeah.
And who was the stud running back they had back then? Arian Foster.
Arian Foster.
Like back in those days, that was a fun team.
Big defensively in the middle. Who did they have?
What was his name? I know who you're talking about. It was a white guy.
You have it? Oh no, I was thinking of a black guy.
Well, they had
Vince Wilfork. Vince Wilfork played for them for a while.
Wilfork was with the Patriots, I think.
I thought he spent some time.
He might have.
Anyway,
I want to say he did. I think he did spend some time in Houston.
You might be right. Yeah. Whitney Merciless was there though to start his season, his career.
Yeah. And then you had Brian Cushing was there for a couple.
That was the guy. That was the guy I was thinking.
He was a monster. He did play. Pretty good recall there for me to remember that Vince Wilfork played for the Houston Texans for 1 year. 1 year he played for them, and I guess maybe that 1 year when Matt Schaub was good, I also paid attention to the Houston Texans. But I don't agree with myself here. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I had when I picked, and then I'm going to tell you what I really think they probably will end up. I have them at 1-16.
Oh,
right. Okay, I know I'm a bully. I get it. And this is, I will tell you, 1-16 is not the worst record that you will hear tonight. Okay. So I have them going 1-16. Wow. I disagree with that. I really think this is a team that could be looking at closer to 8 wins. Their biggest hurdle is this division that they have to play the Colts twice. That's 2 losses. And they have to play the Titans twice, which I honestly probably would give them 2 losses against the Titans.
I don't know about that.
We'll see. I mean, it's definitely up. To me, it's going to depend on how these new young pieces come in and improve this defense, like Christian Harris, like Derek Stingley Jr. Can these guys and can Davis Mills, is he that dude? Is he that dude that can step up and lead a franchise? But
fair.
Hayden, what you see in the Texans this year?
I'm not seeing 1-16. I'm definitely seeing more of a 5-12 is where I have them at.
That's pretty good.
I think their record won't show just how much they improved, though. Yeah. I think that, adding those guys, Christian Harris, Stingley, unfortunately, like I said, we won't get to see Mechie, but those guys will make them better. I think they're going to be one of those teams, kind of like the Lions last year, where they were competitive in a lot of games, but the record's not going to show just how competitive they really were. But it's just one of those things. And I want to go back to y'all talking about the Lovie Smith hire as well. I don't trust that guy. I really don't as a head coach. But the Texans, I don't really get the last few Texans head coaching hires. So at this point, I'm just kind of questioning the front office in general. But yeah, I see them going 5-12. I don't want to say that's at best, but that's definitely about where Houston's going to be because, like I said, they're going to have a lot of young talent.
Yeah.
But it just too much inexperience in the end, and that schedule is brutal. Like you said, 2 losses to the Colts. I could see them maybe pulling out 1 win against the Titans, maybe.
Yep.
But I mean, you got Jacksonville, so that's going to give you a few wins. But other than that, it's a really, really tough schedule for them.
Yeah. I could see them easily splitting the series with Tennessee and Jacksonville, and then getting swept by the Colts. And if they did that, then that's 2-4 in their division. Maybe they can string together, 3 or 4 other wins outside the division. But yeah, that's why I've got them 4-13. Same thing. I just don't. I could see this team, like you said, Blake, going closer to 8-9, possibly flirting with double digits. But that's if everything goes right, and I don't think that doesn't happen for many teams often, in my opinion. And so I do think. I will say I think 4-13 is closer to their floor. I don't see them winning much less than 4. I think 4 is, if they win less than that, a lot of things went wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I think
I think some of it hinges on Davis Mills.
True. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, I'm just gonna be honest. I was mostly sarcastic last year about Davis Mills. Okay. I know that you're probably all thinking, what? You don't really think Davis Mills is a Hall of Fame quarterback? And yes, I'll be honest. I'm not quite to thinking that he is Hall of Fame quarterback. But honestly, I don't know what to think about this guy. This is a guy that we saw him do some good things, and then he had some bad weeks too. So
I do want to say real quick while you're talking about Davis Mills, you were joking, but this is
also right.
This is Davis Mills' stats in games not against Buffalo, who has a killer defense, and Indy. So those 3 games, take those 3 games out of his year last year.
Yeah,
he had 10 starts, went 66.5% completion percentage, 2,285 yards with 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And that's facing defenses like Cleveland, Carolina, New England, both the Rams and Chargers, San Francisco, and Tennessee. So while you were joking, this guy showed a lot last year, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. All right. You know what? I'll go back to conducting the Davis Mills hype train. I take it all back. He's a Hall of Famer. Now, if he retired next week, put him in the Hall of Fame. Greatest quarterback to ever touch a football.
I'm not going to go that far.
Him and Uncle Rico.
Let's slow down.
Him and Uncle Rico who could throw a football over them mountains.
It's like all or nothing for you. I don't understand why it has to be that way. I don't get it.
You mean like I made the Texans 1-16? Oh man. Anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna come back to talking about the Texans when we get to another team in this division here in a minute. But yeah. So I don't like my 1-16. I think I like Hayden's number. I think 5 wins is probably about the sweet spot for this team. I think that's probably more accurate than my 1 win.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts, which maybe you two guys are excited to watch as Matt Ryan moves over to Indy. Longtime Atlanta Falcons starting quarterback going out to the Colts to potentially pursue a Super Bowl. I think this team has the talent to get there. They're in an easy division. Should be 6 easy wins for them right there. I've got probably high expectations of this team. But who do we got coming in? Who do we got leaving town?
Yeah, first of all, I'm wearing my Matt Ryan jersey. If there is any other podcast, it could be more perfect. It couldn't be more perfect than for the AFC NFC South, where Matt Ryan moved from the NFC South to the AFC South. Still a huge Matt Ryan fan. So obviously Matt Ryan coming into Indy is going to be huge. They also added Yannick Ngakoue. They added Steven. I said Yannick Ngakoue correctly and then messed up Stephon Gilmore. Come on, Blake. They also added safety Rodney McLeod. They lost Marlon Mack, which I guess is not as much of a loss as I thought. Maybe Marlon, I think you're great, okay? Even if nobody else does. They lost wide receiver Pascal. They lost Eric Fisher. That's a huge loss. They lost Xavier Rhodes, another huge loss. Rock Ya-Sin, and they lost safety Andrew Sendejo. In the draft.
And they lost the first name Darius. I picked up Shaquille.
Yes. I almost added that. They lost Darius Leonard, but added Shaquille Leonard. For whatever reason, he's changed his name. Did you know this, Hayden?
I was not informed about that. No.
Yeah.
Yes. So Darius Leonard, who was one of the best linebackers in the league, is one of the best linebackers in the league, came out and said, "Hey, actually, people call me Shaquille." So he's Shaquille Leonard now, which is just a weird situation. That I mean, like we haven't had to go through this since Chad Ochocinco. So we got a totally different name. In the draft, they picked up wide receiver from Cincinnati, Alec Pierce, and then really interesting pick, Jelani Woods, tight end from Virginia, who looks like a solid player. He was one of the best tight ends. Was he the top rated tight end in the draft? Anybody know?
I don't remember.
I want to say he was top 3. I don't want to say he was the top, but I want to say he was definitely top 3.
Yeah. He was one that I heard a lot about, and so but anyway, that covers up that covers who they lost, who they gained. Did a decent job in the draft, but it looks like they lost quite a bit on both sides of the ball, in my opinion.
I agree, but I still think this team is going to be just fine. I think that defense is still going to be solid. Now, I do wonder. It was their defensive coordinator that left for the head coaching job in Chicago, so I do wonder how much that's going to affect the efficiency of that defense. But I think they've still got a lot of talent on that side of the ball. The offensive side, I think. While talent did leave, I think they only get better because Matt Ryan is leaps and bounds better than Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
People can say what they want statistically. That statistically they're not that much different, at least over the last couple of years. But Matt Ryan hasn't been working with top tier talent on the offensive side the last couple of years in Atlanta. So I think you're going to see a drastically different quarterback in Indy this year, playing behind an actual offensive line that can block for him and playing with some solid wide receivers and an actual running back committee behind him. So I have high hopes for this team. I have them going 12-5.
I've got them at 13-4. I'm with you. We both loved this team last year. This is a team that drastically underperformed. And what's interesting, and you brought up the stats, and that Carson Wentz's stats don't look that bad from last year. But what's crazy is when those stats happened was so interesting. I brought it up in, I think it was their last game they played when they lost to the Jags. That knocked it. Was it the Jags or the Jets they lost to? It was some embarrassing loss.
The Jags.
Yeah, they lost to the Jags the last game of the season. And his Carson Wentz's what is number? Completion percentage wasn't bad, but what's interesting is the third down completions were awful. And all of those were all of the ones that were those, like his missed throws, almost all of them came on third down. So while it was like technically he did great, he was doing great on first and second down and letting the team down on third down. So that's not something you're going to see Matt Ryan do. That's not something Matt Ryan is not anti-clutch, despite all the 28-3 references you want to make. Matt Ryan is not going to choke away a game like his defense did in that one, or like Tom Brady I'm spiraling now.
Julian Edelman and his fingertips. That's what it was.
I did the thing. I brought it up, and we're not even talking about the Falcons yet. And I brought up a 28-3 reference. But I think the Colts. I think that the only reason I didn't give them more wins is because of whatever kept them out of the playoffs last year. That was like I don't know what's going on. So sorry, Hayden. He said he lost us.
Oh,
so we can see you. Text Hayden McDaniel and say we can see you.
Okay, I'll send your message.
Yeah, it's for some reason his phone is still working.
Interesting. Well,
yeah, he's frozen in the Discord. So,
oh yeah, that he is.
I wonder if we can kick somebody out. Can you kick him out of the Discord?
Mm, mm, I mean, I can remove from group.
Eh,
I wonder if his computer just like crashed. Oh, gotcha. That's what it was. Well, this is
Rip,
unfortunate because I wanted him to bring some insight to the Colts with Matt Ryan going over there.
well, we can.
Yeah, I'm just waiting.
Yeah. Do 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 do. I don't want to get copyright strike from singing the Jeopardy song.
It might happen with YouTube. YouTube is
Are they more
strict.
strict with it?
From what I've heard, they're pretty strict. But it's because they have essentially AI go through and like search through videos.
Yeah.
So whenever videos get processed, they like look for copyrighted stuff in it. And so something like that could trigger it, even though obviously it's not the actual thing.
Right. Well, they can have a cut of our YouTube earnings.
Yeah.
They can. You can have some of it.
You can
Jeopardy.
take your half a penny.
Both dollars that we ever make. Let's go, Hayden's computer. Let's go. I did something with my with my Discord, and I don't know how to do this again. I made it to where just like one person's screen is up, and I don't know. Oh, there we go. Got it. Fixed it. Got it. Done. Hey.
Oh man.
Yeah, I guess the world just doesn't like Marlon Mack. I don't know why. He was so good.
It is weird. I mean, I don't understand it honestly because I don't think he's that bad. I mean, like for Indy, it makes sense because you still got Jonathan Taylor, and I believe you
Right.
still got Naeem Hines
Yeah,
playing behind him, so it makes sense. But yeah, I was fully expecting him to be the starting running back in Houston.
Yeah.
I haven't watched any of their preseason, so maybe he got outplayed.
I mean, that's what from what I'm reading. So I don't know if it was. I think it was actually even before the season. I mean, before the Matt Ryan trade. Twitter thinks that I'm a Colts fan, and so I see a lot of Colts things because of how high we were on the Colts last year, and so I've been seeing people talk about how Damian Pierce has been doing really well. Are you there? No. Is Discord failing us? Is that what happened? Is that what happened? Discord heard me sing Jeopardy, and it took us out. There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
Okay. What happened? I think we're just not supposed to do the pod tonight. I think it's
Oh, no.
just we're not even 2 teams in.
Not even. Boop 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 boop. I just can't wait for my computer. I'm so excited.
I
And
mean,
I was so bummed.
that 16 gigs is gonna be nice.
Yeah, dude.
I believe. I'm trying to remember how many gigs my MacBook had. I think that was either 12 or 16.
Oh wow.
And like, I used that for like editing video because that's how
Yeah.
good the RAM was.
What happened to that MacBook?
It crapped out on me.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does.
I had, I think the last computer that was mine, like, because most of my computers have just been the church's, or like the church had like got a computer for me, but it technically still belonged to the church.
Right.
But the last computer that was mine that I bought was before I went to college. I bought a MacBook. And so I had a MacBook Pro. And so you're talking about the RAM. I remember mine came with 2 gigs of RAM, and that was huge. And then like after I was done with college, and it was probably like 5 years later, I added 2 more gigs of RAM to make it 4 gigs of RAM. And that was still like, okay, that's pretty good. And so what's funny is I texted Josh and I was like, "Hey, if you see any good deals on PCs, let me know." And I said, I don't need anything super beefy. Like, it would be great if it had. I said it would be great if it had like more than 4 gigs of RAM. And he said, "Blake, it's 2022. You need at least 8 gigs of RAM." And I was like, "All right, whatever. I don't know. I don't buy computers that much."
I think we got the man back. Still don't have his video, but that's okay. We don't have that. I'm gonna go let Luna in real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, go for it. What's going on, YouTube? We're just having a little bit of technical difficulties. Bear with us.
Ah. Well.
Oh wait, do we see him now?
Yeah.
There he is.
Got him. You
You
there?
back?
Can you hear us?
You muted.
Yeah.
Your mic is muted, so maybe it's just that you're muted. He's typing. Oh.
Ah. Oh. Oh. I think I've got you.
Oh, there we go.
Got you coming through.
Heyo. Hayden,
Yeah.
can you hear us?
Hear us though? That's the question. Okay.
Okay, I can hear y'all now.
There
Hey.
we go.
I am so sorry, guys. I am
You're good, man.
so sorry.
You're good, man.
All of a sudden, I saw my laptop just go black, and I'm like, oh no! I hope that now I'm like, oh crap! I hope they can edit this because I'm like over here like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, we can edit. So don't worry.
Hang on one second. Let me get back to the screen because I turned my screen off after a while because
you're good.
Yeah, no worries.
Whew, that was almost a disaster.
Devin, do you happen to remember the last thing that I said?
I
You're talking about the Colts. That's the last I remember.
Yeah, we were on the Colts.
And I had a lot to say about it too. I was like, oh man, I'm ready for this one. And then all of a
I
sudden,
know that you had said that you had them at 13-4.
Yeah,
Devin
we can.
had
You
them
could.
at 12-5.
You could probably just have it at. All right, I've got the Colts at 13-4, and then Hayden, are you ready?
Like, to go?
What?
Like, to start recording again?
Yeah. I'm gonna tee you up. I'm gonna ask you. I'm just gonna ask you, but tell me when you're ready first.
Yeah, hang on one second. I'm gonna press mute so you don't hear the airplane going on in the background.
Okay. That's
And
fair.
then, if you can see me, I'll just give you a thumbs up.
Okay. Oh, I can't see you, but it's okay. I'll just assume that you're
Okay. I'll just say, all right, I'm ready.
okay. So Hayden, you being a Falcons fan, knowing Matt Ryan, loving Matt Ryan for so long, what do you think about the newly generaled Colts?
I'm with Devin. I've got them at 12-5 as well. But there's just a few games in that schedule that are going to be very difficult outside of the division. But I think a lot of those games they will be able to win. I know that they go. Is it them that goes to Philadelphia on either on the road or I think they play Philadelphia. I know they play all of the AFC West. So that's going to be hard. That's going to be very difficult to go through because that's a stacked division.
Yeah.
So I see them having some bumps along the way there, but I'm like both of y'all. I'm very high on this team. I think this team could reach the Super Bowl. As a matter of fact, I don't know if y'all saw in our little chat where we were picking the records for every team this season. I actually had Indianapolis going all the way to the AFC Championship game. So
wow.
Yeah,
I see that happening, man.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Cincinnati snuck in last year, and I mean, nobody saw that coming.
Yeah.
This team is probably set up a little bit better than what Cincinnati was last year. So I'm really high on this team. I'm gonna as a Falcons fan, the sentimental part of me wants to see Matt Ryan do well and finally get a ring. I'm not sure if he's going to get to the Super Bowl, but I really think they have a shot at going to the AFC Championship game. And let's also talk about their backup quarterback addition. They have a former Super Bowl winning quarterback in Nick Foles as well. So they've got a lot of depth at QB for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah.
Which is something they haven't had in a long time. Quarterback, I mean, Phillip Rivers was good, but I mean, he was at the end of his career and he's never a big Super Bowl, or he never won a Super Bowl. So I mean,
he was a transitional
exactly.
Bring in just like Carson Wentz was last year. I mean, they've kind of been in that state of transitional quarterback really since Andrew Luck surprisingly retired so early, and even the last couple years of his career he was dealing with injury after injury after injury. So they've been in that quarterback limbo for a good few years now. And they kind of still are, even with Matt Ryan, because I don't see Matt Ryan honestly having more than maybe 3 good years left.
Yeah.
And that might be pushing it. So
that's fair.
I think that 2-3 years from now, they're going to be looking for that next quarterback.
Yeah. And like what I think is really interesting is because I knew, so when everything happened with Massage Boy, I kind of saw it coming that Matt Ryan was going to move.
Right.
But earlier this year, earlier in the offseason, somebody in the Colts front office actually said, we don't want any more Band-Aids at quarterback. And so the fact that they traded for Matt Ryan is just it seems so interesting to me because it seems like this is a team that they're like, we're tired of just having this is a 2 or 3 year solution. We want somebody who can build, but also like when you have that defense, you want to capitalize on that. And when it comes to at this stage of his career, Matt Ryan is the best game manager quarterback in the league because I mean, he's borderline top 10 quarterback in the league as it is. But if you just want to use him as a game manager, let Jonathan Taylor take over the game, and then Matt Ryan's just not going to lose it for you. And maybe even come down the field and give you a game-winning drive, which is something that Carson Wentz could not and cannot and will not do. So I think this team is in a much better situation leadership-wise with Matt Ryan. And so I'm really excited. I'm with you, Hayden, that I have no ill will towards Matt. I don't blame him for wanting out
Not at all.
especially now with how bad that situation looked. I've never been so thankful for Cleveland in my whole life as them taking Deshaun Watson at the last moment. But I don't blame him for feeling disrespected and wanting out. And so I'm glad he's got a chance and he didn't end up going to Houston or the Giants or somewhere and trying to end his career in a situation or staying in Atlanta and trying to end his career in a rebuild. I'm glad he gets to go somewhere that's kind of established. And I'll be wearing my Matt Ryan jersey when the Colts are in the playoffs and the Falcons have been eliminated, and I'll be rooting them on. And hopefully we get to see this team and Matt Ryan hoist the Lombardi. That'd be cool.
Yeah, Blake, I agree. You were talking about Matt Ryan coming through in clutch situations. How many 1-minute drives did we see him push through in the first 5 years of his career? I can think of one against the Bears. There are several games I can think of when Matt Ryan would in 1 minute, like 1-minute drills, just driving down 80 yards down the field and either setting up a game-winning field goal or throwing the game-winning touchdown pass. And I think we'll see a lot more of that again in Indianapolis because now he's got a O-line that can actually protect him. But yeah, the whole Deshaun Watson thing as well, though, I have no ill will towards Matt because that was just a very very messed up situation as a whole.
Well, I mean, it's like we weren't doing the podcast at the time when all of that was going down, but I told Blake, Deshaun Watson, say what you want about him character-wise, but he is the kind of talent that if you have the ability to go after that kind of talent, you almost have to. Like you're doing yourself a disservice from a business standpoint not to pursue that. And I think that Matt Ryan's the kind of professional that he understands that he gets that, and he knows that he knew that his time in Atlanta was coming to a close sooner rather than later. And I think that Atlanta did a very good job by him to say, hey, we respect you enough. We're going to try and find you a contender that you can go try and win that elusive Super Bowl with. And I think he's got a really good shot in Indy.
Yeah. And I think you see the difference in it's hard to compare it, but the way Matt Ryan handled that situation, the way Baker Mayfield handled that situation were completely different. Now on one hand,
I do think the front office, the way they handled it was differently too.
That's also very true.
I think Atlanta went to Matt and said, look, we have an opportunity here. This is what we're pursuing, but we want to do right by you also. Whereas
from my understanding,
Cleveland,
that is what happened.
Whereas Cleveland was like, we're moving on from this child that we have at quarterback.
Right. And it is like Matt Ryan knows he's at the tail end of his career. He probably doesn't blame Atlanta for wanting to get a quarterback of the future, where Cleveland is like, you know what? I know you're a young quarterback that we thought was the quarterback of our future, but now we're just going to throw you out with the garbage.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I feel like we could sit here and talk about the Matt Ryan, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson drama. We should have just dropped the podcast when that happened because that was ridiculous. But anyway, the Colts, they be very good, and we excited to watch them play football.
Let's go down south to Florida and talk about these Jacksonville Jaguars. Interesting. Better in year 2 for Trevor Lawrence. We'll finally get to see Travis Etienne hit the field. His running back mate from college at Clemson, and we have a new head coach because I can't even remember his name right now. But he doesn't deserve to be there. And now we have Doug Peterson, who did win a Super Bowl with Philly, bringing some of that expertise down to Jacksonville. I think that's a sneaky good hire for that team, and I'm excited to watch them. I don't have super high hopes for them, but who do we got coming in? Who do we got leaving?
I'll include this as a positive, is that Urban Meyer. That was who you were trying to think of.
That was his
Urban
name.
Meyer. Again, talk about off the field issues. Whew. But we'll include that as a positive that he's gone. The Jags added Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Brandon Shreve, Foye Oluokun, linebacker from Atlanta, ATL. They lost Carlos Hyde, Tavon Austin, DJ Chark. That's a huge one. Andrew Norwell,
big.
also huge. And Miles Jack. In the draft, they picked up Trayvon Walker. Huge surprise pick to a lot of people, especially like from when the mock drafts first started coming out until when it happened that Trayvon Walker jumped up that high. And then Devin Lloyd, a linebacker out of Utah, who obviously good name. But yeah, so it's a team that they lost a lot, but they also added a lot, especially if you're high on Christian Kirk, which I saw some stats the other day about his production over his first few seasons has been like ridiculous, and he was the third receiver behind DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green. So like he's a guy that I think they definitely saw a huge potential in him, but also did he earn that contract he got? Who knows? So yeah, honestly, I probably have the Jags. I said I was going to come back to the Texans. I probably have the Jags and Texans flip-flopped. I've got the Jags going 5-12, and I think that's pretty generous because I don't think this team has a very good defense. I don't think that they added enough to make it a great defense. And I don't really trust the offense quite yet. I know they got Travis Etienne, but they also lost DJ Chark, who that's huge. Like he was their best receiver
And
by a significant amount.
Laviska Shenault, who was their number 2, at least the number 2 years ago. He got shipped off the other day to Carolina, I believe.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I didn't have him on there, but that's a good pick. So their number 1 and number 2 receivers, they are gone. I mean, obviously you bring in Christian.
They're really banking on Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
I also have this team at 5-12. I do think that might be a tad low. I could see this team pushing 8 wins. But that's Trevor Lawrence making big steps forward in year 2. Travis Etienne coming out the gate, looking like what we expected him to look like coming out of college. So I don't see that quite happening, but would I be surprised by it? No, I don't think so. What do you think, Hayden?
It's like Blake said about the Texans earlier. You look at the schedule, and it's hard to really pick Jacksonville to win a game when you look at the schedule.
Yep.
But I have them going actually 5-12 this year. Okay. I think again, like the Texans, it'll be an improved Jacksonville team. I hate that Trevor Lawrence had to spend his first year in the NFL under Urban Meyer's quote leadership or whatever you want to call that, because I mean I feel like he had a pretty much a big waste of a rookie season. And Trevor Lawrence is a really talented quarterback. You talk about another guy that kept me up. This dude lit up my Alabama Crimson Tide defense on my birthday a few years ago, and I still haven't forgiven him for it. So, but overall, I'm really high on Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. That quarterback running back combination, it could be deadly, but I mean, it's going to be good in the future, and I think they're going to make big strides this year. But still, big strides is going from 2-15 last year to 5-12 this year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, you got to start somewhere, and I think, again, I want to go back to the Doug Peterson hire. I thought that was a really good hire as well. So you're making steps in the right direction after completely screwing up the hire last season. Because as soon as that hire was announced, I'm like, this is not going to end well for either side.
I think the only people that saw it ending well was the front office of Jacksonville. I mean, nobody else at least as far as I know, nobody I know personally, nobody I heard, from any of the media thought that was going to be a home run hire.
Yeah.
There's just too many question marks there for him in the NFL, and also like for this season for Jacksonville, I still think like there's too many question marks for this team. I can't trust them enough to say they're going to win that many more than 5 games. I could see it happening, but I just can't trust them to do it.
Okay, so let me ask you guys. I wanna go back to Houston for a minute. Which of these two teams do you think, not like in your predictions, like that's not what I'm asking about. Which of these two teams do you think is a better football team this year?
Probably Houston, if I had to, which I have them 1 game worse record wise, but I think Houston might be the better team.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually, the more I'm thinking about it, that's actually a tougher question than I initially thought it would be. Man, I would have to say overall probably the Texans, but yeah, the Texans. But man, I definitely think that if you go position by position, it would almost be quarterback. Obviously, you got to go Jacksonville, but.
Obviously,
I don't know if it's that obvious.
I mean,
I am with you that I loved Trevor Lawrence coming out of college. My worry though was that in the few games that he had against the closest to pro level defenses that he would face, he did not perform well, and that kind of carried over into his first season. Now, a lot of that first season could be on Urban Meyer. Yeah. But Trevor Lawrence did not perform great in season 1. Whereas Davis Mills, right? Whereas Davis Mills, who nobody expected, had any kind of expectations placed on him, actually looked decent.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, that's fair. Maybe I'm thinking more long term when it comes to who's going to be the better quarterback.
That's fair. Yeah.
But I've always been high on Trevor Lawrence. Growing up watching him play on GPB TV over here when he was playing at Cartersville, it seemed like he was on TV every single Friday night because he was literally the poster child for Georgia high school football for forever. From the time he was a freshman until the time he graduated, it seemed like there was never a Friday night where he wasn't on TV. But I think I've just always been very high on him. But yeah, I can see where y'all are coming from with Davis Mills because I mean there were no expectations for this guy. Was he even the starter at the beginning of the year last year? I can't even remember if he was.
No,
was the starter.
Was it Tyrod?
Probably. It seems like that's just his job in the NFL is just to go be the starting quarterback at the beginning of a season for every team in the league, and then get replaced by like week 4.
Fun fact, I actually read today that Josh Johnson set the record for playing for the most teams in the NFL. He has played for 14 NFL teams as a backup quarterback for almost all of them.
I mean, he's also played
for his 15th team. Yeah, he's played the USFL, the XFL, and the AAF. Yeah. He's played in like all of the spring leagues too. So he's made money not without the pressure, like good for him. But yeah, I what's interesting is that like in my picks, I have the poor Houston Texans at 1 win and the Jags at 5 wins. But if I'm really thinking about it, the Texans are pretty clearly the better team in my mind. Like at most every position, I'm going Houston. And
yeah.
Even what's interesting is even both of them have retread coaches that are guys that have had success and then also been kind of bums on the NFL level. So it'll be interesting to see which of them, is able to bounce back. But anyway, I just wanted to propose that question while we were here.
It's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that.
Which of these two really bad teams is better?
Yeah. Well, let's move up to Tennessee where we have the Tennessee Titans kind of in a weird spot. You do have arguably the best running back in football in Derrick Henry. Hopefully coming back healthy, coming back and regaining that crown that he's had for years as King Henry. But you got Ryan Tannehill, who already starting off on the wrong foot with his soon-to-be replacement in Malik Willis. You've got a
Oh,
defense
yeah.
that lost some key pieces. AJ Brown is no longer around, so who is Tannehill even going to throw the ball to? It's a lot of question marks for this team. Who we got coming in? Who we got leaving, Blake?
We have got, in my opinion, one of the steals of this is that they got Robert Woods for a 6th round
I
pick.
keep forgetting that he's there now.
They got Robert Woods now. He's coming off an injury. There's no telling of what kind of quality Robert Woods they're going to get, but this is a guy that's been a solid receiver in the NFL since his days in Buffalo. Then he moved over to LA, and he consistently puts up numbers.
Yeah.
To me, he's a lot like Emmanuel Sanders. It's a guy that doesn't get a whole lot of love, but always it's like he just shows up in the top 10 fantasy rankings by the end of the season.
That's
I mean,
true.
he's
That
a
is a
monster.
good pickup.
They also got Austin Hooper, pretty nice pickup. Good to have a tight end there. But they lost AJ Brown, both games that Julio Jones played for them. They lost 2 of their offensive guards. They lost linebacker Rashawn Evans. They lost. What's interesting to me is the name that they had. All of these are coming from NFL.com, so appreciate you, NFL.com, as my source. But it said they lost cornerback Jackrabbit Jenkins, and I was like, I don't know who that is, but absolutely I'm putting him on this list. If his name is Jackrabbit, for sure. Apparently, it's Janoris Jenkins, and they just put his nickname in, but it's Janoris Jenkins, who I was like, okay, well, yeah, he definitely needs to be mentioned in somebody who they've lost. So what's weird is that they added 2 big names, but every name they lost is an impact player.
Yep.
And then in the draft, they drafted Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas, Roger McCreary, deep back out of Auburn, and of course, the most intriguing pick is Malik Willis out of Liberty University to quarterback. And so it'll be interesting to see if he gets any shot at the starting job, if he gets any playing time, if he's able to take that job over from Ryan Tannehill. I don't think he will. Spoiler alert. But yeah, so what do you, Devin, what you got for this team?
I actually have them second in the division at 5-12. I don't have high hopes for this team.
Ooh.
I just think that they're in a really weird spot. Now, I do trust Mike Vrabel at the head coach position. I think he's maybe one of the more underrated coaches in the league.
Absolutely.
He has done a very solid job in Tennessee in his time there. But I don't know, man. I feel like this team is in such a kind of like a transitional state that I don't quite know what to make of them. I do think that 5-12 is definitely closer to their floor. And I think that I probably unfairly gave them some losses, but they also don't have the easiest schedule. Like,
that's true.
They have to go on the road to Buffalo. They have to play Vegas. They have to play on the road in Kansas City. They have to play on the road in Green Bay. They have to play on the road in Philly, on the road against the Chargers. Like, these are tough games. They get Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's going to be a big dog. They get Denver at home, but Denver's going to be a big dog. Like this is a very tough schedule. And I think 5 wins is absolutely something that could happen. I could see them getting 8 or 9 wins, and maybe they flirt with the 7th wild card spot, but I don't see that happening because of how stacked the AFC is. I just think it's going to be a tough year for them.
Yeah, I've got them at 9 and 8. I think that I do think that they run the bottom half of the division. I think that they run the table against Houston and against Jacksonville. So that gives them 4 wins out of the gate. And then they pick up 5 others. And I just think that this Titans team, it's really easy to discount them. We did that a lot last year on this podcast. We absolutely discounted Tennessee. Once Derrick Henry went down, I know I did. And I think you did late. You hopped on there with me, but once Derrick Henry went down, I was like, these guys are toast. Like you can't win games on the back of Ryan Tannehill. And then Deontay Foreman came in and was like, hey, I can run the ball too. But it's all gonna come down to Derrick Henry. What can Derrick Henry do? Is he gonna come back and be Cyborg from the Justice League? Like, is he gonna be ridiculous and be able to absolutely dominate the league like he was doing?
Right.
Or is he gonna fall into that injury prone category, which I hope not. But yeah,
Yeah.
I've got this team as at 9-8, and I definitely could see them performing better, but they need help big time at wide receiver. It coming off of injury, Robert Woods is not great. Brian Tannehill's not a great quarterback. I think this defense was really good, and we'll have to see if they can all just sit on the shoulders of King Henry like they did the first part of last year. So, speaking of King Henry, another Alabama product. So, Hayden, what you got on these Titans of Tennessee?
That was a beautiful segue. I actually have I'm with you on that, Blake. I have them going 9-8 as well. I think honestly, Derrick Henry's probably going to win them a lot of those games to push them to 9-8. That's going to be their only hope because the move I don't understand, probably the move I understood the least the whole entire offseason was trading AJ Brown because they were close to going to the AFC Championship game last year, and then I mean you're like one step away from being a Super Bowl contender, and you decide to go backwards. That's just something I didn't really understand. Because he's one of the best in the league, and he basically just handed the Eagles their division by trading him to Philadelphia on draft night. I remember you guys, I think, were on my draft stream
Yes.
when that was going on. And we didn't know why the Eagles and Titans had traded, and then we found out that there was that was the big move. And I still have struggled to understand it to this day because I think they were in perfect position to contend and possibly compete with the Colts without a solid quarterback. But now you take away A.J. Brown. I mean, Burks, who I thought was one of the most underrated wide receivers in the draft, I think he's going to be really good, but you can't rely on a rookie in his first year to get you very far. And then, like you said, Blake, with Robert Woods being so injury prone, it's going to be very difficult for the Titans to really have a lot of success in the wide receiver core as it is, let alone Ryan Tannehill cannot throw a ball very far. So, I'm just I want to have high hopes for this team because they were so close last year, but honestly, 9-8 is probably the ceiling for them this year. And like you said, Devin, maybe contending for that 7 spot, but it's going to be very difficult with how stacked the AFC is this year.
I don't see it happen. I feel like you're looking at least 11 wins to get that 7th wild card. The AFC is just too ridiculously top heavy. I'm with you. I don't understand why you trade away your second best playmaker on your team, whether between the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Like AJ Brown is your second best player on that team behind Derrick Henry, and why you trade him away instead of paying him, I don't understand at all. It's not like you're in quarterback paying hell like some teams where they're paying $45-50 million for the quarterback. Ryan Tannehill ain't making that kind of money. Like, you have the money laying around, pay AJ Brown because he's going to go out there and win you games because he's going to be able to catch those balls that Ryan Tannehill can't pass. So
okay. I wanna give the Titans a little bit of a break. Okay, maybe, just maybe, they know AJ Brown isn't that good.
I feel like when you're putting up the numbers he's put up with a quarterback like Ryan Tannehill, you're pretty dang good.
I mean, maybe. Okay, so let's look at AJ Brown over the past 3 years. The only seasons he's played in the NFL, right? He's played 3 years. He's had 2 1,000-yard seasons, and one last year he had a 869-yard season
Because he was dealing with injuries.
Right.
I say, well, he was pretty banged up last year.
He was, and that is a scary guy to give a contract like he is the best receiver in football, which is what he wanted. He wanted a contract that was like, I'm the best receiver in football, pay me like it. And I mean, okay, one thing he does have is a butt ton of touchdowns. This dude has gotten 24 touchdowns in 3 years, which is pretty bonkers. But last year, he only had 5 touchdowns.
Again, banged up though. Like,
Right, but like,
how many
what are you?
games? How many games did he play?
13. Like, he wasn't like,
Okay.
it's not like he missed a ton of games. I mean, sure, a lot of those are going to be limited snap counts, but this year he had 105 targets. Last year he had 106 targets. So I'm just saying that maybe this guy isn't quite up to the level that you would want him to be for the money. That's all I'm saying. It's just for the money. Maybe they thought, let's spend our money elsewhere. Honestly, I just compared him to Christian Kirk. Pretty similar numbers other than touchdowns, because AJ Brown did have a 11 touchdown year in 2020. And so, pretty monster year there. But I don't know.
Man.
I agree that I don't think they got enough in return. But anyway, I just think that maybe let's calm it down. Let's see if AJ Brown. I don't even think AJ Brown's the best receiver on that team, potentially. I think it still could be Devontae Smith is the best receiver on that team, but AJ Brown is probably the best number 2 receiver in the league. So, we'll see. We'll see.
That's fair. I think that team in Philly is pretty solid with those two guys. Your 1-2 punch at wideout, though.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah. Well, let's move over to the NFC side of things. And let's talk about y'all's Dirty Birds down in ATL. We got the Atlanta Falcons.
ATL! I'm excited. I'm excited for this season. Is going to be terrible.
I'm glad you're excited, because this is a team that 3 or 4 weeks into the season, that excitement could go downhill really quickly.
Oh, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone.
But
no doubt in my mind.
I do think, like, living in close enough to Atlanta to where I get Atlanta radio and I'm listening to guys on sports radio talking about this team, I feel like me, as a non-Atlanta fan, I have way more optimism than most of y'all do. I'm not sitting here saying that Atlanta's going to go out there and put up 10 wins, but I think this team could have 7, maybe even 8 wins in a weak NFC going into December, possibly playing for meaningful football, for wild card positioning. I don't think that's out of the question for these guys. Now, before I really put up an argument for that, I just want to preface it by saying I'm not crazy. I did give these guys a 3-14 record in my standings, which I think is a little low, but it happened somehow. But I think that's their floor, honestly.
Yeah,
I think 3-14 is their floor, and I think their ceiling could be as high as, I'll say, 10 wins. I'm not going to go over 10 wins, but I think 10 could be their ceiling, and that's if Marcus Mariota comes out and plays like the Marcus Mariota that we kind of saw in his days in Tennessee, and if Drake London puts out up Rookie of the Year type numbers like we all expect. AJ Terrell, who is looking like an absolute stud cornerback, makes even more strides in being that shutdown corner. I think that this team has some good playmakers and young guys that if they take that progression, take that next step, they could be potentially contending for a wild card.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously mine and probably Hayden's is going to come through with some pretty hefty bias, but I like Arthur Smith. I think he's a good coach.
Yes.
He's going to change his system.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to use Marcus Mariota to run the ball a lot more. Dean Pease, I love our defensive coordinator. Dean Pease, he is a clip waiting to happen. He's said, and I've seen him quoted several places on this, but he said he's so tired of hearing Atlanta being a bottom 10 defense. And he's like, He's like cussing in the clip. He's like livid. And he's like, no, I want this to be a team that we're a top 10 defense and teams are scared to face us. And so I'm really excited. Apparently last year he didn't even really roll out his full defense because of the personnel issues. He didn't quite have the personnel he wanted. Maybe he's got some more difficult schemes and things. But I think that this defense is actually going to be pretty scary because you've got Grady Jarrett, who is top 3 defensive tackle in the league. You've got AJ Terrell, who is top 5 corner in the league. They paired him. Now I'm going to get into the additions. They paired him with Casey Hayward, who was a top 10 corner in the league last year. So you've got 2 top 10 corners potentially on either side of the ball. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. And then obviously added Marcus Mariota, Damian Williams, Brian Edwards. On the defensive side, you added Lorenzo Carter, Rashaan Evans, veteran linebacker out of Tennessee, and then Casey Hayward. As far as the losses go, you lost Matt Ryan. You lost the gambling man, Calvin Ridley, for the season. Russell Gage is gone. Hayden Hurst is gone. Foye Oluokun gone. Fabian Moreau is gone. And my personal shout out to long snapper Josh Harris. Long snappers, unsung heroes of the NFL, played with Atlanta for 11 years. He's been through a lot of stuff with this team, but he finally is moving on, and I don't remember where he went, but best of luck to you, Josh Harris. And then in the draft, they picked up Drake London. Arnold, man, I need somebody else to help me with his last name. Hayden, do you know how to say this dude's last name? Ibikite?
Yeah, you're probably doing a better job than I would, buddy.
Okay. Yeah, they got. I think they call him AK.
Yes.
Yeah, edge rusher out of Penn State, and then Troy Anderson, linebacker out of Montana State. I'm really intrigued with that pick. Could be good. And then obviously the one that a lot of people know, Desmond Ridder, potential quarterback of the future. Kind of wait and see. So I don't anticipate seeing Desmond Ridder week 1 unless something happens to Marcus Mariota. But we'll see if he's
I would
able to win that starting
I
job.
would say week 7 or week 8 is probably the sweet spot,
Yeah,
and that's assuming that Marcus Mariota's not having a great season. If Mariota's lighting it up, I think they roll with him.
Yeah, and I think that leaning on him more for his running and not making him a pocket passer is going to help a lot. Expect to see a lot of bootlegs. Expect to see a lot of scrambling by Marcus Mariota this season. A lot of short dump passes to Cordero Patterson. Ooh, that's going to be good to watch. But I have the Falcons. I'm a little more on the optimistic side. I am not a negative Falcons fan. I've got them at 7-10, which might be too high. But honestly, I'm pretty high on this defense, which is weird, and I love it. You know how much I love defense, man. If the Falcons can have one of the top defenses in the league, even if we go 7-10, I will be ecstatic. I love to watch defense. I would love it if my team had a defense that struck fear into the hearts of the opponents. And then if Marcus Mariota could just kind of run around and, score a couple touchdowns, I'll be happy. But yeah, I've got them going 7-10, and I honestly think that's pretty close to the ceiling. That's me being optimistic, and with my hefty Falcons bias goggles on, and I accept that and I own it. So Hayden, do you also have positive Falcons bias goggles?
I like to think I do. I have the Falcons at 6-11.
Okay.
But I mean, because here's the thing: you play Cleveland before Blake's happy ending buddy over there.
Whoa! Okay, I'm gonna cut you off. We're not giving him the nickname Blake's happy ending buddy. That is not his nickname.
I'm sorry.
That is. I just wanted to nip that in the bud real quick.
Oh gosh, I don't know.
I think that's a great nickname for him.
Oh, no.
I think nip it in the bud is a good nickname for him.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna cost Blake his job.
So, all right. So anyway, yes. Before Tickle Me Watson gets back, is what you're saying. I understand. Continue.
Yes, we play Cleveland before Tickle Me Watson. There you go. I like that name a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm not very high on Pittsburgh. We play Pittsburgh at home this year. I think we could get a win there.
Ooh.
And
I didn't give him
Not
that.
happening.
I didn't give him that win.
Really? Okay. Then they always seem to steal a game from the Saints, so
Yep.
I'm banking on that happening this year. You got Carolina, and then I forget who else. Seattle was another one I had them at. So I think 6 wins is very, very doable. I could see them maybe winning 9, but I could also see them winning 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So it's just all going to depend on how this plays out. I do like. I didn't like the Drake London pick at first in the draft, but I think I'm a little bit more sold on it now than I was on draft night.
Yeah.
I think he'll turn out to be a pretty good wide receiver and turn out to be a really good pick. The Ritter pick, based on what I've seen in the preseason so far, he looks pretty good, but I'm still in limbo about that. If we do fall to 3-14, I'm hoping that maybe we try to go after my boy Bryce Young. I'm not 100% confident that'll happen, but overall, I think 6-11 with a lot of optimism going into the future is kind of where I see this team. I really like Arthur Smith. I like that he's kind of holding this team accountable, which is something I never really felt like Dan Quinn did. I felt like Dan Quinn lost the locker room. I felt like he lost it about a year or so before he got fired. But I think Arthur Smith definitely is the right guy at the right time for this team. And I like that we have a coach that's actually calling plays too. So
Yes.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. Arthur Smith is like a complete like opposite in terms of Dan Quinn. Like Dan Quinn was so much of a like rah guy. See, I disagree with you. I think he had the locker room until the day that he packed up his stuff. I think they probably helped him carry his boxes to the car because they liked him so much. I think his problem was just he wasn't that good of a strategist as far as a head coach is concerned. Obviously, we're seeing in Dallas, he's doing really good things over there, but he was really stuck in his ways in Atlanta. He never changed the defense. He came out and he was like, "We're running cover 2 the entire time. Everybody's gonna know it." So he didn't change enough, but I felt like the guys really supported him. He just didn't know what direction to point them.
Well, I think that you can like a guy and not necessarily view him as a great leader. And I think that might have been what happened in the locker room. And that's honestly I do worry about that some with the Lions because Dan Campbell is such a great motivator and such a great, speaker and very much like what you said about Dan Quinn, that rah type mentality, that maybe if he falters in coaching decisions, then the locker room might start saying, okay, well, we really love this guy, but he's not the greatest leader. And maybe that's what happened with Dan Quinn towards the end. But honestly, you mentioned that wide receiver pickup of Drake London and not loving on draft night. I'm with you. I didn't like it either on draft night. I thought that they should have gone defense or offensive line. But honestly, I think Drake London, Bryan Edwards, Kyle Pitts is a sneaky good receiving core. I would take that in Green Bay in a heartbeat right now.
I really like that wide receiver core. I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, and like, I think Bryan Edwards, as a Carolina fan, I realize I am biased towards Bryan Edwards, but I think he is an underrated wide receiver that didn't get enough time to shine in Vegas, and I think having him in Atlanta is going to do him a lot of good. And I think that between London and Pitts, I mean, you're set up there for the next 10 years if both those guys pan out to be what we expect. So yeah, I think this team is in really good hands, and I'm kind of high on Desmond Ridder. I think he was the best quarterback in this class, and I think even if the Falcons go 3-14, unless Desmond Ridder played a majority of the season and they went that,
Yeah.
I don't think they should be searching for a quarterback in next year's draft.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, that's one of
It's
those, like,
tough.
I
It's
just
a
say,
very wishy-washy situation.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those where I'm like, you know what? I'm not there for practice. So if they think that we need
True,
another quarterback,
true.
then I trust them. But if they think we're set with Desmond Ridder, I'm going to lean in and be like, all right, well, I trust you. You know more about football than me, and you're there for practice. I don't do
And-
either of those things.
And it is one of those situations where it's not like you wasted a first round pick or a second round pick on this guy. You got him in
That's
the
what I
third
love
round.
about it.
Like that's
Yeah.
if you hit on him and he does turn out to be similar to that Russell Wilson type guy where you've got a franchise quarterback that you got late in the draft, that's
Yep.
an absolute steal. And if he's not, then it was a third round pick. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's a very good position to be in. If you're Atlanta,
Yeah.
right there.
If people, 10 years, 5 years down the road, people are going, man, Atlanta got Drake London and Desmond Ridder in the same
Right.
draft,
Yeah.
then we're set. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on in the division, and we'll go about 3.5 hours northeast over to Charlotte, where we've got Carolina Panthers, who maybe have their guy now in Baker Mayfield. This team is another one of those teams that's kind of in a transitional state, kind of in limbo. I think Matt Rule is on the hot seat there. If he has a down year, I think he has to be gone. But they have a solid defense, and with Baker, with a healthy CMC, I think that team has the talent to make a bit of a run. Who else we got coming into town? Who we got leaving?
Yeah, so we got obviously Baker Mayfield coming to town. You got wide receiver Rashard Higgins, linebacker Corey Littleton, deep back Xavier Woods. They did lose both corners AJ Bouye and Stephon Gilmore. So they did lose a little bit, but they also, they added some pieces too. In the draft, they took Ike Ekwonu. That's the only time I'll probably ever say that name. He's a tackle from NC State. And then they also took Matt Corral from Ole Miss, who is now on the IR. So doesn't even matter that they took him. But yeah, right now it doesn't.
Could be future, yeah.
Maybe. But dude, for somebody who's a Falcons fan, I'm unusually high on these Carolina Panthers. I think that these Panthers, depending on,
I feel like I hear a shaker coming.
If this is what I think it's if this is going where I think it's going.
Okay, depending on listen, y'all are getting spicy in just like your takes of my takes. Okay, let's calm down. Baker Mayfield. Okay, let's just take a look at Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield ate a big old slice of humble pie when his team, who he was the first quarterback to take them to a winning season in what, like a million years?
A long time.
And they call him a child, and then they hire somebody who is like an actual immature. Anyway, I won't get on that soapbox. And so Baker, I think that he's jaded, and I think that he's had to grow up a little bit because someone called him out. Like someone was like, "You're a child."
Fair.
And so, but he hasn't lost his swag, man. They asked him in an interview. They said, how do you feel about that they haven't named a starting quarterback between you and Sam Darnold? And he said, it's not about if they name me the starting quarterback. It's about when. And I'm like, he's still got it. And now he has a chip on his shoulder. And so I think what we're going to see from Baker Mayfield this year is going to be the best version of Baker Mayfield we have ever seen, especially because he's going to be put in some pretty good places in pretty good situations because of how good this defense is. I was unbelievably high on this defense last year. I'm going to stay unbelievably high on this defense this year. I have the Carolina Panthers winning the division and going 11-6.
I don't know what's more surprising, the fact that you're giving Carolina 11 wins and the division, or the fact that you're saying that Tampa is at least finishing with 10 wins or less. That is quite surprising.
you know how I feel about Lord
Listen,
Voldemort.
I
that
feel
plays
this. I
quarterback
feel
for
the
the
same
Bucks.
way, but like I still look at the NFL with the glasses of reality.
Well, we'll get there. They're in two teams. I'll tell you, I don't even think my take on Carolina winning the division is the worst take of this segment. So we'll just leave it at that.
I mean, I do have to say it is pretty spicy. But
that is very. I respect it though.
Hey, I picked. You know what's crazy? I picked Carolina to win the division last year, and
You
here
did.
I sit.
You did.
Doing it again.
And I also picked Baker Mayfield to win MVP last year.
You did.
And I think that we were both maybe a year too soon.
Yeah.
I do not have Carolina that high. I have them at 8 and 9. And I think a lot of that is just because of question marks. Like I don't know if Matt Rule is the guy to lead that team. I don't know if I love Baker Mayfield. I don't know if his best days in the NFL are behind him or in front of him. I think that there's just so many question marks. I will say that I think it helps him out a lot playing Cleveland in week 1 because he's going to come out with a bang. And Baker is the kind of guy that once he gets that confidence going, it just keeps on going. And so,
dude, he's got DJ Moore, who is a top 15, maybe top 10 wide receiver in the league. And we haven't seen him with a quarterback. And so like DJ Moore is solid. Ian Thomas at tight end is a really nice piece to throw to. And then you've got arguably the most talented running back and easily the most talented receiving back in the league in Christian McCaffrey.
If he's healthy.
Okay.
That's the question mark,
I'm just saying that's what they have now today.
I agree. But there is a serious question mark beside Christian McCaffrey because
I wouldn't take him in the number one pick in a fantasy draft.
He hasn't played most of the last 2 seasons because of injuries. So
he's brittle.
If he's healthy, I agree with you that dude's an absolute force and playmaker and will get 4 to 6 wins all by himself for this team.
Yeah.
That's such a big
and they might not need to lean on him as much now. Like that's the thing is like this team has had to completely depend on CMC. And now they've got Baker Mayfield. And so if you can just turn CMC into a weapon instead of the cornerstone, maybe it lowers the snap count. Maybe it takes some of the pressure off of him. Defenses can't key in on him as much because now you also have to worry about Baker Mayfield, his mobility, DJ Moore, Ian Thomas,
True.
Anyway.
True. Well, what are you sitting over there thinking, Hayden?
I'm just taking it in that Blake picked him to win the division. Like I respect it though. I respect it. I don't have them going 11-6 and winning the division. I have them at 9-8 and possibly fighting for the second spot in the division. I did like the Baker Mayfield trade. I've always been pretty high on Baker Mayfield, which is funny because I was not very high on him when he was in college. I couldn't stand him when he was in college. But I think, like Blake said, he's going to have a massive chip on his shoulder this year. I can't wait to see that game against Cleveland in week 1. I keep telling y'all in the group chat that I strongly believe he's going to throw for at least 3 touchdowns. And probably about 400 yards in that game. He is going to light up that Cleveland defense.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And I think him going to a new city will do him some good. So I especially after everything that happened in Cleveland, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. Because right now he has to be the guy because you have Matt Corral on the IR and Sam Darnold went down with was it a meniscus injury the other night?
I don't remember what it was, but it looked nasty. It
was pretty nasty. So I mean, he kind of he has to be the guy right now. But he has no problem being the guy. So, but I think he's going to have a much improved year from last year. And I mean, we'll see what happens. I could be wrong, and Blake could be spot on about them winning the division, or we could see Carolina kind of have another one of those years, and Matt Rule's out the door week 6. But they're just another one of those teams that you don't. Their ceiling is probably 11 wins, and the floor is probably 4 or 5. But I don't see them only winning 4 games. I see them winning a lot more than that. But 9-8 and battling for the second spot in the division is definitely where I see Carolina this year.
Honestly, for Baker, I hope that everything hits this year, and that Matt Rule continues to stick around. Honestly, that Baker Mayfield comes in and saves Matt Rule's job, because currently Matt Rule is the fourth head coach that Baker Mayfield's played for. Baker Mayfield was drafted in 2017, 2018.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about 4 head coaches in like 5 years. That's ridiculous. How is this guy supposed to have a successful NFL career when you're playing for that many different head coaches and having to learn that many different systems? So I hope for his sake that he doesn't have to go through this again next year if he's still in Carolina or if he's elsewhere. I hope that it all clicks here with him in Charlotte playing for Carolina, and that they offer him some sort of long-term deal to be their franchise guy, because man, he needs that stability. He has not had stability in the locker room at the head coach position since he entered the league. And I was very hopeful that Stefanski would be that guy in Cleveland. And I still think that Kevin Stefanski is a good head coach, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out for Baker there. I do wonder, Blake, though. I do wonder how long it'll take into the season. So it took about 4 weeks for us to get Sham Darnold last year. It took about 2 weeks of Cam Newton being there for us to get Scam Newton. I do wonder how long it's going to take before we get Faker Mayfield.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Yeah, we'll see. Do we get Baker Mayfield or do we get Faker Mayfield? I like it. Hopefully it's not week 1. If there's a week that I want Baker Mayfield,
it won't be.
Big B Baker. Let's do it.
No, I almost want to guarantee that it will not happen in week 1.
Yeah, listen. If gambling was legal in the state of Georgia, I
exactly.
might put some money
on
that.
Thing.
I mean,
exactly.
It's almost worth driving up to those casinos in North Carolina for.
I was about to say that. I mean, shoot.
Speaking of, I was going to ask this question: which city would you like to live in less, Charlotte, North Carolina, or Cleveland?
Cleveland would be awful. Have either one of y'all been to Ohio?
I've never been to Ohio.
I have. I've always liked Charlotte. So
Charlotte's nice, but Ohio is depressing. It's a depressing state.
I just took a road trip through the Midwest a few weeks ago, and let's just say if Ohio is anything like a lot of those other states, I mean, I've been to Ohio. It's been a long time. If Ohio is anything like those other states that its fellow Midwest states, then I mean, other than going to see some sporting events up there, I have no other desire to.
I'm with you.
To visit.
I'm with you on that. Well, let's go on down south to New Orleans, Louisiana. We got the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston back healthy, hopefully. Sean Payton gone. Dennis Allen, their former DC, taken over for him. I don't know how I feel about that hire. I don't really love it. We'll see what we get with Dennis Allen. I think this team is, again, one of those teams that's kind of in a transitional state. I don't think that Jameis is the long-term solution there.
No.
But the defense has been solid. And maybe with a healthy Michael Thomas, that offense can make some moves. They do have Kamara sitting out for 6 games because of some sort of suspension. It's tough. I have them sitting at 8 and 9. I don't think that they're going to be spectacular, but I also don't see them being terrible. I think that if they lose or if they win less than 4 games, that is a huge shock. But who do we have coming down to Louisiana? Who we got leaving? I already hear the Maraca.
You brought up the record, and I'm gonna shake this for about 2.5 minutes. Y'all just bear with me on this spicy take. Okay, so I'm gonna be honest on this one. Okay, I don't mean it, right? What I'm about to say, I don't mean it. Sorry, I do mean this. I hate the Saints. I hate everything about them. I don't even really like the
Amen,
color
brother.
gold
Amen,
anymore.
brother.
I don't like
Preaching.
anything about it. Like I hate everything. I don't ever want to go to New Orleans. Never been. Have no desire to go.
I disagree.
It stinks from what I've heard. It's just dirty. I feel like I would just need to shower looking at pictures of New Orleans. It's a gross place. I have them going 0-17.
What?
I think that might be the single most biased take you've ever had in the history of this podcast.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Okay, I told you I didn't mean it. Okay. Would I be surprised if this team went 0-17?
Yes,
No.
the answer is yes.
I would
Yes.
not. Okay, well let me explain my reasoning. So
This is not the New York Jets.
First of all, let me read through this list of what they've added. They added the legend, the Red Rider, Andy Dalton. They added Jarvis Landry. Don't know who's going to throw to him. Maybe it's Andy Dalton. They
Winston.
added the Honey Badger. They added Sorensen. They lost Lil Jordan Humphrey, which, if anything, great name they lost. They lost Kenny Stills. They lost tackle Teron Armstead. They lost linebacker Quan Alexander. They lost Malcolm Jenkins. They lost Marcus Williams. Both of their starting safeties, mind you. Both of their starting safeties gone.
Yeah, they replaced it with Sorensen and Honey Badger.
Sorensen, that's your answer?
Listen.
Honey Badger? That's your answer?
Those were the starting safeties for Kansas City, so they just brought those guys in.
That's the defense that you want to base your team off of?
I'm not saying it's a good move. I'm just saying that's what they did.
Anyway, they drafted Chris Olave, wide receiver, and then Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Penn State, and Alante Taylor, who's a cornerback from Tennessee. Okay, listen. Jameis Winston is a bum. He's a bum. And we've talked about it on the podcast before. I think his first... It took him like 6 weeks before he threw for more than 150 yards. Like,
yeah.
He's not good, and he would throw for like 4 touchdowns.
But he was playing efficient in Sean Payton's offense, but that's going to be a different offense.
That is what I was going to say next.
Yeah.
Sean Payton is gone. In my opinion, the greatest offensive-minded coach in NFL history. As far as a play caller orchestrating that offense, Sean Payton, as much as I loathed him, when I saw that he retired, I started singing Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead. I was so excited that Sean Payton is gone because he was a mastermind. And I don't think people are quantifying how many wins Sean Payton gave them. He made Jameis Winston look good, okay? I don't hate Jameis Winston. I just don't think he's as good as he looked in Sean Payton's offense. That's my thing. I don't think he's as good as he looked in Sean Payton's offense.
I agree.
And so I think that how is Alvin Kamara going to be used? Not nearly as creatively as he had been. Michael Thomas, sure, he can still catch a slant pass, absolutely, like he does every year until he gets broken in week 3. So I don't care that Michael Thomas is healthy because that's today, as of, let me check the date, as of August 30th. If you're listening to this tomorrow, he probably got hurt at practice. Jarvis Landry, sure, solid, old as dirt. I don't really think this team is going to go 0-17. If I'm really giving them, I do think they're probably a 4 or 5 win team, because of the loss of Sean Payton. These are some huge losses on their defense. Also losing Teron Armstead, their starting tackle, huge. I mean, I really think that the losses this team has gone through are bigger than people expect. So I, in my picks, had them 0-17, probably closer to 4-13 or 5-12.
I mean, I am with you in the fact that I do think the Saints are being really overhyped. There's a lot of media analysts out there that are loving the Saints team for some reason, and I'm with you. I don't believe in Jameis Winston. I think that losing Kamara for 6 games and him not being in Sean Payton's offense is going to be a little bit of a tricky thing for him to overcome. Michael Thomas is injury prone, but that pairing between him and Chris Olave is a solid pairing.
And Jarvis Landry.
And Jarvis Landry, I keep feeling like that's a very good wide receiver core.
It is.
I
Somebody's got to throw it to him.
Despite how bad Jameis Winston can be, I think that if you can't have success with that receiving core, then you really are a bum. And maybe he is. And I like I said in the lead-in, like I don't love the Dennis Allen hire. I think that's a really weird hire, but they kept it in-house, and maybe that says something about that team. I don't know. I am kind of at a loss for words, though, that you would say 0-17.
Listen, I think, again, you talk about teams that are hard to pick to win a game, and it's me and the Saints, okay? So I understand that. If I remove my bias from my picks, which I understand you can't just do because it changes the shape of the entire league when you just add 5 wins to a team, because those 5 wins have to come from somewhere. But, you know, I honestly, I have Atlanta beating them twice. I think Atlanta is a better football team than the New Orleans Saints. I really do. Now, a lot of that hinges on Marcus Mariota, but statistically, Marcus Mariota is a better quarterback than Jameis Winston.
Hayden, please come at my guy over here with some sense.
All right, first off, I don't hate the city of New Orleans. It does smell. Blake is right. It smells really bad. I have some good friends down there. I've always enjoyed New Orleans.
You've got family over there, right?
My sister lives in Biloxi, Mississippi, not too far from New Orleans. So, I've got a lot of ties down to that area. The food down there is fantastic. At least if you go down there for the food. Food is fantastic. I will say that. Other than that, though, the food, the people, can't stand their football team. And as a college fan, too, can't stand LSU. But I'm not gonna go and say 0-17. I am gonna say 7-10 though. I think they finished third in the division this year. There are a lot of question marks. Jameis Winston is somebody I have never trusted in the NFL. He was a great college quarterback, controversy and everything aside. He was a great college quarterback. But in the NFL, he has not lived up to his expectations. Right. I mean, last year he had a good sample size of managing the game and getting them to 5-2 before he got injured. But in a full season, Jameis Winston is just not somebody I trust to get the job done. And the hire, like you said, Devin, the Dennis Allen hire was a very strange hire. But I do believe because Sean Payton retired like at the end of January, right? I can't remember the exact timing of it, but it was pretty late.
That sounds right, yeah.
So I think it was kind of one of those things where they had to make a hire really quick, and he was one of the guys available. It was a familiarity thing, so they just went with it. But I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I'm with Blake. I think Sean Payton got them a lot of those wins over the years, and I think what gets New Orleans a lot of their 7 wins this year is that defense. But overall, I mean, 7-10. Now they could be a little bit better, but I don't have a lot of high hopes this year. The schedule is really tough. I've got them splitting a game with Atlanta. I think I have Carolina. I believe I have Carolina and Tampa Bay sweeping them this year, though. So I think they take a big step back this year, but I don't know. We'll see. It's a team that's going to be very intriguing to watch this year because, I mean, they've got Louisiana's own. Well, Louisiana. I'm not sure exactly where he's from, but from LSU and the Honey Badger, who's probably closer towards the end of his career at this point. Oh yeah. But you got Kamara out 6 games, and you've got Jameis Winston, who is a liability at this point at the quarterback position. But I mean, he's better than Andy Dalton, I feel like at this point. And it's just, I'm just curious to see at this point, basically, how long into the season until Taysom Hill's named the starter again, and they have to go back to that route.
Oh, I think once Sean Payton retired, Taysom Hill's chances of being a starting quarterback for that team went out the window.
Yeah. His snap count was cut in like a third.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a very very interesting year for New Orleans. But let's go down to Tampa Bay real quick. Hit this team. Discuss the little amount that we have to discuss about Tom Brady being back, and he's gonna go win a Super Bowl like everybody says he's gonna do. Blah 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 blah. Tampa Bay Buccaneers easily. I have them sitting at 13-4. I think that. What can I say? I mean, they lost some guys, but I think the core of that team is still around, and I think that they're just gonna be one of the top dogs in the NFC once again. Who we got in town? Who we got leaving town, Blake?
They added Russell Gage, the one game that they'll get from Julio Jones, Kyle Rudolph, Shaq Mason, Akeem Hicks, Keanu Neal, and Logan Ryan. So they added a lot, but it's because they also lost a lot. They lost Ronald Jones, they lost Gronk, they lost O.J. Howard, they lost Ali Marpet and Alex Kappa, both of them offensive guards. They lost Jason Pierre-Paul, they lost Ndamukong Suh, they lost Richard Sherman, they lost safety Jordan Whitehead. So they lost a lot. They added a lot, new names, new faces, revolving door. They drafted Logan Hall, who's a defensive end from Houston, and Luke Godecki, who is a offensive guard from Central Michigan, and probably the last time I'll ever say that name. I've got them at 9-8. I think that this team is still good. I think that I've got them still making. Okay, listen. I think this is a team that still makes the playoffs. But what scares you about this team? Like, I understand they have Tom Brady, but did you see that most recent interview that he did? That dude looks like he barely wants to be Tom Brady at this point, much less be playing NFL football. I'm really questioning that's to me, this team all rests on Tom Brady. Like, Leonard Fournette is not going to go win you games at this stage of his career. Is he good?
No,
Sure.
I agree.
Is Giovanni Bernard still good? Sure, I guess. But like, Tom Brady is what is winning those games. I don't know if he still cares. Like, if you're Tom Brady and you're having whatever issues he's having in his life, which it sounds like to read into the between the lines of what he said in his most recent press conference, like, it sounds like he's got some stuff going on, and he has $375 million sitting, waiting on him to retire so he can step into the broadcast booth.
And a new head coach in Todd Bowles.
So I think that there's some trouble. I would agree that I think that this 9-8 that I have the Bucs is probably closer to their floor. And if Tom Brady finally does fall off, as we've all hoped that he would for the last decade, we've all hoped that Tom Brady would start to decline. And so if that happens, that's where I have them sitting here at 9-8. A loss of chemistry, changing of a lot of people, a lot of players. No Gronk, no Bruce Arians. To me, it sounds like it could be a little bit of a disaster, but this team still does have, like you said, still does have a lot of talent. And so I think that 9-8 is close to a disaster for Tampa Bay, in my opinion. This is definitely their floor.
Yeah, going through everything and hearing all the pieces they lost, they did bring a lot of talent in, but I would probably adjust my record to more like the 11-6 range. I can't go as far as to give a Tom Brady led team less than 10 wins. And I hate saying that.
But here's my
question. I cannot tell you how much it pains me to say that.
Now that you've thought through it, does the Carolina Panthers winning the division seem a little bit more possible? Because some of those games, if you're going to knock off a couple games, one of them's probably to Carolina.
To an extent, but Carolina also has to do a lot to prove to me that they're going to be there. That's
not as crazy as I look.
I'm with you, Devin. I'm with you on that.
That's my thing. Is like I like Carolina. I think Carolina is a solid team. I think they have a lot of talent. I like Baker being there. I like that defense. I don't trust Matt Rule. I don't know if everything's going to click. I don't know.
But you trust Todd Bowles?
No, I don't trust Todd Bowles, but I trust Tom. Don't make me say that. Don't make me say that. Again, with my realistic goggles of looking at the NFL, I don't see Tom Brady winning less than 10 games,
He's
especially
45!
who cares? The guy just had a great season. He just won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Like, that age does not matter to Tom Brady. But
Father Time is undefeated.
not for Tom Brady.
Undefeated.
Tom Brady is kicking Father Time's butt.
Well, listen, it's not over. It ain't over yet. Tom Brady had him beat, and then he said, you know what? Ding, ding, let's go another round, Father Time, and see how it goes.
Again, Hayden, I'm going to defer to you to please knock some sense into this, man.
I mean, I don't know how to feel about this Tom Brady thing at this point. I felt like when he came back, it was going to be one of those like vintage Tom Brady moments where, you know, he decides to retire, then he comes back, and all of a sudden he's just going to be on a revenge tour this year because they lost to LA. I think it was in the divisional round, wasn't it? And in the playoffs this year. So I thought at first, and they lost to LA at home too in the divisional round. So I thought maybe it was going to be like the Tom Brady revenge tour. And at first, Tampa Bay was my like shoe-in to win the Super Bowl when I first found out that Tom Brady was coming back. But as the weeks have gone on and the personal issues have occurred and nothing is being released about him, which is starting to make me even more curious. I'm not sold on them going to the Super Bowl anymore. I don't have that, but I still do have them winning the NFC South. And like you said, Devin, it's hard to imagine the Tom Brady-led team not winning at least 10 games. I have them going 12-5, and still winning the division. But I mean, now I'm curious, which Tom Brady are we going to see? Are we going to see vintage Tom Brady? Are we going to see him, you know, come out and light up every defense that he faces? Or are we going to see Tom Brady take a step back? Because, I mean, he is 45, and I know he's a different breed at 45, but one of those things I'm very curious to see. And Julio Jones finally got his, quote, elite quarterback. I know that's one of the reasons why he said he wanted out of Atlanta was to play for an elite quarterback. So, I mean, he'll be able to play probably 2 or 3 games for him. But overall, he gets to play 2 or 3 games for an elite quarterback, and which Tom Brady is an elite quarterback. But, I mean, I just felt like it was too much of a disrespect towards Matt Ryan when he said that.
Tom Brady at 45 is not an elite quarterback. Tom Brady at 45 is not an elite quarterback. I guarantee
until he proves me to be until he proves me otherwise, I'm gonna continue.
I will put it. I will shake the dang.
Blake,
you can make this a spicy take as much as you want. Ain't no way that statistically Tom Brady ends this season as a top 5 quarterback. He was
an elite quarterback at 44.
It's like, and I'm referring to college here. There's all these college analysts every year that say this is the year Alabama falls back, and I'm at the point where I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it about Tom Brady. I'm in the same shoes about Tom Brady. I'll believe he's not a top 5 quarterback, he's not an elite quarterback, or that he'll take a step back when I see it.
Well, keep your daggone eyes peeled, Hayden, because it's gonna happen. Watch it with your eyeballs this year. He's falling off the cliff. He's done. Look at that man. He doesn't even have any cheeks anymore. He's just his face looks like
he does look like he aged a lot over the offseason. Watching that press conference the other day, I was like,
that's what happens. What happens when you have to spend 4 or 5 months at home with your wife and kids?
It looks like, amen. As a stay-at-home dad, flipping men.
I know he's got teenagers now too, so that probably added a few years to his life. So, but I'm very curious as to see which Tom Brady we see. I don't have the Bucs going to the Super Bowl anymore like I originally did. My nightmare Super Bowl, though, and I've said this as a Falcons fan, is Tampa Bay and Indianapolis, which I'd love to see Matt Ryan get one. But imagine a Matt Ryan and Julio Jones going head to head in the Super Bowl. Like, that would almost be like, I don't know, cringeworthy for Atlanta fans thinking what could have been.
Well, lucky for you, you don't gotta watch it. It ain't gonna happen.
No, ain't gonna happen.
I'm very thankful for that.
My thing with Tom Brady, I'm with you. Like, I don't know who what Tom Brady we're going to get, and part of that is because what does this guy have left to prove? Like at this point, the man has 7 rings. The man, like he did it.
Huge
He did
broadcasting
it.
contract.
He did it with a second team. He didn't do it just with Bill Belichick. Like, what else do you have to prove? I don't understand why he continues to keep playing. I wish he would have retired 2 years ago after winning the Super Bowl. You go out on top the same way.
Sense.
Go out on top the same way that Peyton Manning did, the same way Ray Lewis did, the same way all those guys did. Like, do that. That to me that has more of like a like monumental impact,
right?
Than continuing to play well past your prime.
And Devin, you mentioned how Baker Mayfield earlier, and this is an interesting stat. Baker Mayfield's been through 4 or 5 head coaches in his 5 or 6 years playing. This is only Tom Brady's 3rd head coach.
Exactly.
Which is ridiculous to think about.
Yeah.
But another thing to add on to Tampa Bay, another concern I have, Blake mentioned it earlier, Todd Bowles. I mean, he's got the talent to have success, but strategies, the coaching, it was, I mean, again, kind of like New Orleans, it was probably one of those you had to hire somebody right away.
Right.
Bowles was there. He has head coaching experience. You're not too worried he's going to screw things up considering the talent on that team. So you're probably just like, okay, I mean, we can probably handle 2 or 3 years with him, and then we'll go from there. But once Tom retires, once all these guys, contracts start to come up and all that stuff, then you start to worry about it. But it was probably one of those things where it was just, all right, we'll go with this plan right now, but we'll worry about what to do in 2-3 years when everybody starts to leave and we have to start rebuilding this team.
Right. Well, just to recap, in the AFC South, I have the Colts finishing first, 12-5. Titans finishing second at 5-12. Jags finishing third at 5-12. The Texans finishing 4-13. The Colts being the only playoff team from the AFC South. In the NFC South, I've still got the Tom Brady Buccaneers at the top of the division, finishing 13-4. The Saints finishing second at 8-9. The Panthers finishing at third at 8-9, and the Falcons bringing up the rear at 3-14. The only playoff team from the NFC South that I have is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I've got the Colts winning the division up in the AFC South. The Titans coming in second there, but still missing that playoff spot. Just because of talking about it on the podcast, I'm not going to give records, but I'm going to bump the Texans up to third in that division, and then put the Jags down at the bottom. In the NFC South, I've got the Carolina Panthers for the second year in a row. I'm going to predict that they win the division, and we'll see if I can be more or less wrong this year than I was last year.
And then keep sticking with it every year, Blake, until it happens,
year,
and then you'll look like a genius.
I will. And then I've got the Bucks. Both of those teams do get in the playoffs. I do have the Bucks making the playoffs in the NFC. So I'm not that crazy.
Okay.
And then I've got the Falcons at 7-10, and I have the Saints finishing last in the division. I don't really care what their record is, but I definitely think they're worse than the Falcons.
Just say 0-17. It's okay.
I'm not. I don't really. No. I'm not sticking with that. Okay. I did it in my picks because I don't think I could have ever picked them. But anyway, I will probably pick them at some point in the year to win a game as we get into the regular season and start picking games. But I'm not picking them week 1, so they could suck it. Hayden.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're good.
Y'all wanted me to do this. All right.
Yeah.
I have Indianapolis finishing 12-5, and again going to the AFC Championship game. I just want to throw that one out there.
Go Matty Ice.
Yes, absolutely. And I will be the biggest Colts fan that day if that happens. Yeah, in second place, I have the Tennessee Titans going 9-8. Then Houston at 5-12, and Jacksonville at 5-12. So there's gonna be a tie there at the bottom, but I guess order doesn't. But I got Houston with a little bit of the edge. And then in the NFC South, I have the Buccaneers going 12-5, making the playoffs. Carolina at 9-8. New Orleans at 7-10, and then my Atlanta Falcons at 6-11. And it pains me to have the Saints ahead of the Falcons now that I've actually said it. So I want to change my predictions, but I'm going to stick with that and hope I'm wrong.
Let the bias flow through you. Feel it coursing in your veins.
Absolutely.
All right, Hayden. So because you won't be with us next week, I think next week we'll probably run through our playoff prediction, Super Bowl prediction, and awards predictions, seeing how we're running a little over today's episode. But since you won't be with us next week, who you got in the 2 championship games and then the Super Bowl?
All right. So in the AFC, I have the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Buffalo Bills. And then I have the Green Bay Packers going up against the Los Angeles Rams. I've got Green Bay and Buffalo in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And Devin, you can go ahead and cover your ears or mute me if you want to. But I've got the Buffalo Bills winning the Super Bowl this year for the first time.
That's okay. That's like.
Is it the first time in franchise history? Because I just feel like Josh Allen is.
I think it is. Yeah.
Never.
It's one of those things. Josh Allen has been on a mission since he was in high school. He wasn't recruited very highly out of high school.
Yeah.
Then he went to a community college, went to Wyoming because nobody wanted him after he was in community college. And then he gets drafted into the NFL. It's just a feel-good story. It's about a story here. Josh Allen gets his first Super Bowl. And then, so y'all want to know my MVP as well?
Let's do it.
Sure.
Let's hear an MVP pick.
I'm going to be biased here, but I'm going to go Matt Ryan as the MVP this year. I like it. I think his game in Indianapolis is going to be elevated. I think he's going to be on a mission, and I believe getting into the AFC Championship game will get Matt Ryan his first MVP since 2016.
That'd be great.
It. I love it. Yeah, and I think I said last year that if the Bills and the Packers end up in the Super Bowl playing against each other, I'd be happy with either team winning, honestly. I've been lucky enough to be able to see the Packers win a Super Bowl, actually win 2 Super Bowls in my lifetime, and go to 3. Do I want Rodgers to get another ring? Absolutely. But to see Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills capture one for that city, I think would be really special. So I would love to see that.
I think Josh Allen's just so tired of hearing about what's happened the last 2 years in the playoffs, losing to Patrick Mahomes. And the way it happened last year as well, I think I don't know. I feel like it's going to light a fire in Josh Allen, and I think Buffalo is going to be a force to be reckoned with this year and end up winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Well, Hayden, it's been a blast having you on here.
Thank
you. Where can
Thank you guys for having me.
Where can people listen to more of you?
Spotify, Apple Podcast. Again, it's the Armchair Banner channel. If you like college football, the show is called Fourth and Wrong. We actually just released the first part of our most recent episode today, talking about our college football playoff predictions and our Heisman Trophy winner. And then Friday, right before the first college football game of the season, we will be dropping another. Actually, I'm sorry, it's going to be on Thursday because the first games happen on Thursday. Oh, yeah. And we have 2 games that we picked from Thursday night. We're going to be dropping our bold predictions and our predictions for week 1 of the college football season. And then if you like baseball, I don't record baseball as often because there's so much that goes on during the season, but it's called Touch 'Em All, and it'll be on that same channel. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, or you can follow us on Facebook at Armchair Banner. And yeah, we'll be having a lot of content coming your way in the next few weeks because college football season and the NFL, it's here. I'm pumped.
And baseball's heating up. We're knocking on the door of October baseball here, so that's.
Oh my! And I'll have a lot of baseball content. Yeah, I'll be dropping a lot of content in the next few weeks. So if you're out there and looking for some October baseball content or college football content, there, check it out.
Definitely. Well, like I said, pleasure to have you on. And as always, we thank everybody for listening, for tuning in. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, however you consume us, we appreciate it. We thank you. If
Yeah.
you're not following us on our socials, we've got a Twitter. We don't use it that much. We've got a Facebook. We use that even less. But if you feel like following either one, come hop on. I will continue to plug it. Our Discord is where the most booth review related stuff goes down. That's the party. So if you're not in the Discord, come hop into the Discord, have some fun with us. And as always, thank you. And I think that's that. All right.
Good stuff. Thanks, Hayden, man. That was awesome. Appreciate it.